I'll stand right there. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for filling up all the chairs. One or two. Welcome tonight. So tonight we're going to be talking about wildlife, which doesn't mean what happens late on the Saturday night at Rigby. At least that I know. Anyway, tonight we have with us Cait, the local wildlife park forest. Different. I told you I'd surprise you. But Cait's going to talk about wildlife. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, we have a nice crowd here. Thanks for having me. I am, game warden, wildlife officer, fish cop, geese police, well, sheriff. We're constantly coming up with new names, whatever you want to call me in that category. Little bit about me. I'm originally from Michigan. I moved to Colorado 15 years ago. I don't even count anymore. Love the mountains. And then I met my husband and then I never left. So here I am. I went on a fun career journey of eliminating all the things I didn't want to do before I circled back to my roots from rural area, big hunting community, and then decided what I did want to do. So here I am. The district that I cover, I have what's called Cougar North. My number is 184 if you want to know. But I cover from the Cougar Canyon up to 74E. So I'm on the south side of your road, but Chase, the officers to the north of us, couldn't be here today. I tried to wrangle him. I'll get him back, don't worry. But we collaborate a lot. I mean, a road is a very arbitrary barrier. So if you need one of us, don't think you can't contact me just because you're on the north side. But I go all the way over to the Raywas, and I also have the middle slice of Fort Collins that includes CSU. So I have a really diverse district. That's very fun to be able to do a lot of different things and never bored. And that was part of the goal with the job. My presentation is on black bears because that is the primary thing that we're dealing with right now. But I don't just want to talk at you, and I know there's probably a lot of questions about other wildlife, so interrupt me if you have questions. I'd much rather have a conversation than be lecturing, and I will do my best. I promise to leave plenty of time at the end for questions, so we can just cover whatever's on your mind or whatever wildlife species you would like to know more about or hear more about. Sound good? All right. So, all right. You want to start Zoom?
It's already going. You go ahead.
Okay.
Oop, Yep. Let me go back.
Maybe I'll just let you push the buttons. I'll probably go crazy with the slides. Okay. Perfect. So it's very confusing what we do because our position is unlike traditional game wardens in other states. A lot of other game wardens, unfortunately, are relegated to law enforcement, and we do so much more than that. So it's supposed to be on paper, 30% of my job is law enforcement. Most of that occurs during hunting seasons or big fishing times of the year. The 30% like this is education and outreach. Like I said, I'm fortunate enough to have CSU in my district, so there is a lot of opportunities there, as well as Front Range Community College, helping them with classes. We just did like a large mammal trapping lab, helped with one of CSU's like NCAP dissection series. So fun stuff like that, as well as doing fishing clinics and really anything I keep my hands on. It's one of the really rewarding parts of the job to me. So something I enjoy investing in. And then the other part that I absolutely love is the biology and the general wildlife management, which is typically not something that my position in other states would be involved in, but heavily involved in what our biologists do, as well as the management of my herds and my wildlife populations in general. So, for instance, we just completed one of our pronghorn ground count surveys. I missed out on this because I was doing bear stuff yesterday, but we had flights as well for doing counts for population size and dynamics. So age and sex ratios, as well as overall abundance and habitat usage. So really exciting stuff to be involved in for me. And then the other 10% is other duties as assigned, which still never ceases to surprise me what comes up. And someone points at me and says, "You should do this," and saying, "You want me to?" Okay, we'll try it. We'll give it a go. So we'll talk a little bit about black bears. They're one of my favorite animals. They're absolutely incredible. So I have to give you part of that and share the love and enjoyment first. One of the first things, of course, is that we always get asked, do we have brown bears? And technically, no, as a species, we only have black bears, but it's one of the ones that we named terribly because black bears come in almost every color under the sun that you can imagine. These are only some of them. There's also silver ones that have been seen, as well as nearly like white ones. They come in all different sorts and colors. But if you think you have seen a grizzly bear in Colorado, please let me know. That would be a massive find. There are none known in Colorado right now. But all of these are most of the ones that you'll see most often. I see probably brown more consistently than any other color, but there's plenty of other ones. Is that me or you?
You.
Oh, perfect, it worked. Okay. So brown bear difference, huge size difference, big difference in face shape, as well as just general biology, and the big hump on the back, massive hump on the back. But if you see one of these, it should be very obvious right away that you are not looking at the typical Colorado bear. So black bear, a little bit of biology. Most people don't know that they can live up to 25 years in the wild. It's typical, I would say, 10 to 15-year-old bear is like a good survival rate, like a nice aged bear in the wild. A lot of the ones that you'll typically see are going to be yearlings or early adults. So from 1 to 5-ish are the ones you'll see the most, but definitely have some very nice bears out there. Yes.
Why won't you see the older ones?
They get smarter. We'll talk about that. But they generally get smarter and they will not be around humans as much, which is part of that can be a supposition that I can't prove that, but that's generally what we see, and we'll talk about their intelligence as well. Home range, when it is natural, is 10 to 25 square miles. They have big ranges because they have to constantly almost forage for food in order to sustain their large body sizes. And as we'll talk about, they don't eat a lot of high calorie foods, or they gravitate to them, but most of their diet is going to be vegetation or insects. And so you can imagine how many insects and pieces of fruit and vegetation they have to eat in order to sustain themselves. So they just make this big circuit in their home range and stop at all their favorite food places along the way, essentially. Weight, 100 to 450. The largest one that I know of in Colorado that was confirmed was 600, which is massive. To see a 200 to 250 pound bear is a nice big bear. That is usually the average. 200 is average for adult females, 250-ish for boars. But it also vastly depends not only on their gender, but the season and the food supply. And as we'll talk about, the cycle of a bear is fascinating, and it changes how they use habitat and their body condition throughout the year. They are 3 feet on 4 legs-ish and 4, maybe 5 feet standing. It doesn't sound like much, but up close, it's still a lot of bear. Can confirm. One of my favorite things, though, is people don't realize they can smell 3 to 20 miles, like upwind 20 miles away.
Nice, huh?
And so if we kind of think about that and extrapolate it, it's not just how far they can smell, but their excellent sense of smell means they can smell things that have been in a spot for days. So way better than my dogs in sense of smell. And I have a German Shepherd and a Belgian Malinois, and a bear will beat them every day. That is their main primary driving sense of how they navigate the world. And it is incredible how far and how long that can tell them information. So like we kind of just mentioned, they're omnivorous, but they are mostly, I guess we call it vegetarian. 85%, some studies even say up to 95%, is depending on the season and their habitat. So sarsaparillas, choke cherries, fruit trees in general, acorns on Gamble oak, and then you'll get into ants or termites. They love turning over logs. If you see logs turned over or rocks turned over in the forest and the ground really stirred up underneath, that is a big thing for them as well. And their actual animal portion of their diet is really small, and they don't usually kill what they eat. They have this, all animals have a big like energy cost versus reward. And for a bear, like with how much food they need to eat, actually going through all the effort of like tracking down prey is not usually worth the reward for them. So mostly they just steal what everyone else kills and they'll scavenge on carcasses. But sometimes they will go after much smaller animals, usually fawns or calves, or unfortunately, baby goats, if it's livestock that they shouldn't be eating, but the smaller stuff. Reproduction, so they actually take a while to get to breeding age. So males will start breeding earlier, and breeding age in the wildlife world is when we consider them to be adults. So they'll go through their cub phase, they'll go through their juvenile phase, which is usually synonymous with a yearling-ish age, at least in vernacular. And then we'll get to the subadult, which is past juvenile, and then we'll get to adult at breeding age. So boars will start breeding around 3, and females not usually until 4 or 5. So if you see a female with cubs, then you'll know she's at least around that age or older. 2 to 3 months is gestation, so how long that they are picking up their little cubs. And then litter size is usually 1 to 3. Yeah.
How old will a sow carry cubs? I mean, what's the oldest sow to give birth, kind of thing?
To give birth?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really great question. They should be able to have cubs for most of their life.
Okay.
But I would say when you get to middle age, I'll check on you though to make sure I'm not just making stuff up. But when they get to middle age, that's usually probably when they're just going to stop making the effort and then become biologically. I'll check though. 1 to 3 cubs, most often, as I'm sure you've seen out in the wild, is usually 2, but there is a sow with 3 cubs who's in the Footer Canyon right now. And she has like 3 different color phases in her cubs. So she has a brown one, she has a brown one, and she has a black one. So if you see her, that's a treat. Birth is midwinter, so during their torpor or their hibernation phase is when they're having cubs. Most of gestation also occurs during that time. So she's saving energy and she's putting all of her energy into creating her cubs. They're less than a pound when they're born, super cute. And they are blind, toothless, very fine hair. They're a helpless species when they are born, but they stay in the den until they are at least able to follow around at 15 pounds. So the hibernation phase is just really fascinating in bears because it's not actually a hibernation. Hibernation, a true hibernation, is essentially an animal that almost completely cuts off their body functions for an extended period of time and does not wake up. If it is not a true hibernation, then we call it torpor. So a lot of species will do torpor to some extent. Even prairie dogs will experience some level of torpor depending on where they live in the species.
What about marmots?
I think they go through some level of that phase, but not nearly as much as other species. You'll see it in a lot of ground squirrels, the larger ones usually, and we see it in a lot of amphibians and reptiles go through torpor phase. So once you start digging into it, it's surprising how many species do this as an energy saving strategy. And for bears in particular, it's very temperature and food driven. They cannot sustain their large bodies on what they eat when there isn't food. And so that is when they sleep, when they just can no longer sustain themselves. So they lower their body temperature, they completely cut off their GI system, they don't poop during torpor, as well as they don't need to eat, and they calm everything down, and that's how they save their energy. It's usually, we'll put quotes around usually, from November to March, but I think you might have noticed we did not have a normal winter or really a winter at all. And since this is as an instinct and part of their life cycle, it's very temperature and food driven. They got confused this year. Some of our bears hardly hibernated or didn't really hibernate at all. So they are capable of waking up throughout their torpor, but they'll usually go back to their dens. And some of them woke up and were like, oh wow, look how nice it is out. Must be spring. When it wasn't spring. So that was interesting, and that has lasting effects throughout the season as well. I'm gonna talk about that.
What kind of lasting effects?
So in terms of this year, like we're talking about how reliant bears are on food. This year they woke up early, so they had to start eating things earlier than they normally would have that are not usually in their diet. Then they had to wait for the stuff to become available that is usually in their diet. And then we had a late freeze, which killed a lot of the stuff that's normally in their diet. And so the length of time they're awake right now, as well as the drought and in certain areas, the scarcity of food is just pushing bears into areas where they wouldn't be normally, and making them a little bit more motivated to go for the fast food, our food, instead of doing all the work to get there on food. Yeah.
Typically, how big would a den be of a bird?
It actually varies a lot based on their body size. I've seen bears try to hibernate under porches. And I've seen bears take up a whole cave and enjoy the space for themselves. So if they can fit in it, it could be.
Would they just, some of these giant rock formations, these caves inside, would they
Around
take one of those?
Potentially.
We think, we have where we think that there's one.
Oh,
Yeah, I've seen bear tracks.
should set up a game. And you'll know.
We should.
You'll know
on our
on that.
property, that's why, yeah.
But it's a they're a pretty adaptable species in terms of where they hibernate, but they very rarely dig their own. They'll use what's available. And this is kind of the season that we're in now, although it's starting early. It's called hyperphagia. So when bears wake up, as you can imagine, in the spring, they're really hungry. And then they have to go through the summer, and all of a sudden they have to prepare for going into hibernation and putting on a ton of body weight. I think it's like 20,000 calories a day during hibernation to try to put on enough fat and energy stores in order to make it through the winter. So bear activity right now, as of 2 weeks ago, I can kind of tell you when it started, really started picking up in general. And that means they are going to just be motivated to find food sources. And especially this year, but any year, they're going to be looking for the easiest, that, energy cost versus reward equation that we kind of talked about. They'll be looking for what costs the least amount of energy with the highest reward. And a lot of times that comes from us, unfortunately. Then we get into this cycle that we'll talk about in a minute. So, human bear conflict, as I'm sure you're aware of. So, the biggest thing that I try to impress on people is bears are different. As a wildlife species, not only is their sense of smell incredible, but they are so intelligent. Don't let their blubbery cuteness deceive you. They are as smart as intelligent dogs. They can create correlations between cause and effect and good and bad. And they are capable of reading body posture and human expression. So they can read body language, and their ability to learn behaviors and remember places that they got food from is incredible. They'll probably remember a food source, a significant food source for their entire lifetime. So the moral of the story there is that the little things, the trash and the bird feeders, especially, drinking hummingbird feeders is a favorite one. Turn into bigger things. And then we turn into the very big things in bears and houses. And unless we break that cycle and we do something about it, it is almost an inevitable snowball. It just, we see it all of the time, how that progression goes, but there are things we can do about it. So we'll talk about those too. These are all from Craigslist area. That's when I worked in Evergreen. This poor guy, it was a partial, he lived there part of the time. So I think it was like 6 months he lived in Texas, 6 months he lived here. The bear broke into his front door, and he was just getting it replaced. He had the new door in his garage, and then the bear broke into his back door. It was a pretty significantly sized board. It fit through that little window. You can see his hair right there. And he squeezed right on through. That was another one in Evergreen. Just broke open the locked door. And that one was comfortable enough just to invite himself in. He's looking out right now, not in.
Was that probably the same bear that broke in the front door and the back door? Do they know if it was the same? bear?
Yes, same bear. Yeah. That's with that learning and that remembering. It must have been good enough of a reward inside, and he didn't get any negative reinforcement from that experience that he came back. So, as a summary, human population, bear populations being crunched into smaller sections of habitat. So, I think you guys would probably be able to tell me better, but 15 years ago, maybe a human population of 1 million. Now, do we have like 7 million-ish? Big change in habitat fragmentation, as well as just size and availability of habitat. And we have roughly, don't quote me on this, but probably about 30,000 bears in Colorado right now. They're not extremely territorial. They're a certain amount of bears density wise can live in the same area, although boars will be more territorial, especially during breeding season. But as you can imagine, where do we put the bears with 10 to 25 square miles of home ranges in the current availability of habitat now in Colorado? And so we get bears where there are humans. And then we get bears where there are humans, there's attractants because we have really nice smelling, very yummy things for them to eat. And then when we come into close contact and they get those food rewards, then we get conflict. So this is our progression. It almost always starts with bird feeders. We can talk about different options there, but they can smell where bird feeders were. So putting them up during the daytime and you take them down, that doesn't mean there isn't that smell still lingering and birdseed underneath. So it's very hard to trick a bear, or trash, depending on where the trash is kept. It almost always starts there. And then we get more comfortable. So we start with these things that are further away from the house that smell less like humans and so are less of a risk. And if we get a positive reward without any negative reward, then we start to get a little braver and we say, maybe we can get a little bit closer to the house. Maybe it's that trash can that's up against the house, and maybe that would be okay. And then we go to, well, nothing bad's happening. Maybe I'll just hang around and nap on the porch and, I'll walk by the window and just stare at the humans inside. And then, maybe I can break down that shed door. It's not where the humans live. It doesn't smell like them constantly, but maybe that shed. And then we get into automobiles, which smell like us a lot, and then we get into houses. So they might not hit every step, but this is our general progression as they learn those behaviors and as they get those rewards, they'll get braver and braver. And they will lose their natural fear of us and their aversion of us. And I equate an animal's fear of humans to our pain response as humans. If we didn't have a pain response, we'd put our hand on a burning stove and we would never know that it is very destructive to our bodies, right? And if they get to the point where they forget how dangerous humans and human environment can be, then we just have more conflict and we're putting them in danger. So this is our best tool. If we can intervene right when we're starting to have a problem, right as the snowball is made at the top of the hill before it starts to go all the way down the mountain, then we have a chance to do what we call aversive conditioning. So that's when we can insert a negative correlation and a negative response that will hopefully override that positive reward that they got before. So if we can intervene, prevention and intervention. Prevention is even better. We can prevent it from happening at all. That is the best. But if you can't do that and stuff happens, because it almost always will, intervention early on is the best response and the best chance that we have to actually make a difference before we have to go to more extreme measures. So we can coexist. I don't know why I have that in there, but positive reinforcement. So what can we do? Removing and securing attractants. So this is in our prevention category. So not putting out trash during the nighttime. Bears are typically active from dusk until dawn. So they're more crepuscular or active during the dawn and dusk in particular, but during the night. So bring it out only in the morning, not when they're actually out doing the primary or their primary time of foraging. So eliminating it just being present when they're out eating all the time and we're asleep. Yes.
That means they're nocturnal?
They're not true nocturnal species. They're adaptable in that sense, which is usually what we jump into the crepuscular category. So dawn and dusk, but they're more nocturnal than a lot of other species when their behaviors are unaltered and they're normal. Yes. That answer that was kind of right. That was a good answer. Removing bird feeders. This is a big one. We love our birds. I love my birds. I have bird feeders too. But I do not have them out from Easter to Thanksgiving. It is a choice. There's other options. And I actually have a pamphlet on different ways to attract birds without attracting bears. But I would highly suggest, and it is an ask from me, to not have that temptation in the first place. If we have it out, then there are ways we can do our best to mitigate that attractant. But bears are motivated and they are excellent climbers and they know it's there. So it's like this hanging temptation. Right? A little thing that they want to try. Yes. Greasy grills are a big one. Anything that has really strong scents. This is gonna be a weird one, but I even had a bear that was just, there was essentially a dumpster that was full of baby diapers, and I don't think anything else was in there. But it's a really, really strong scent. I know. I judged the bear too. But it definitely attracted it, and it went through the side of a shed to get to that dumpster. There, like we talked about though, there were probably a lot of steps before that, but if they get into that learned behavior enough, even if it's not a high value food source, it is a strong smell, and it could be, maybe, I got good stuff in there before, maybe it's not just that, maybe we'll get that instead. Yeah.
So do they berries too, other than just insects and greenery or whatever?
Lots of fruit, lots of fruit. So plum trees, if you have fruit trees, apple trees, they absolutely love. But choke cherries are fruit as well as service berries. But a lot of that. They'll even eat, I mean, wild raspberries and fruit berries, they're really small, so I think they'll go for other things before that, but a lot of fruit. They love sweet stuff. Okay, there's that fruit one. Fruit trees are probably the hardest, in my opinion, to control and remove attractants, and I totally understand that. If you can't harvest all of the fruit, because it's hard, I mean, a lot of us have fruit trees in our backyards, we're not like creating them for a commercial aspect, and it's hard to harvest all that and then even know what to do with it. But even just picking up what's fallen on the ground and removing that really strong scent of rotting fruit on the ground is a step in the right direction. And then this is the big one. This one is kind of near and dear to my heart. I know how lovable bears look. They are an extremely charismatic species that are so fun to watch. However, as we mentioned, they can read our body language. And if we make them feel welcome and are playing a part into reducing the fear that they have of us, then we are becoming part of the problem and not being a part of the solution. So thinking about what we're encouraging and where the bear is it in a place where it probably shouldn't be? Is it in bear habitat? That's what I would ask. Is that bear in bear habitat? Now in your area, that gets a little gray because you live in bear habitat. So I would say how close it is. How close is it to something that should smell a lot like humans? And is that too close? That might be a little arbitrary, but it's something to think about. If it's too close, I wouldn't encourage it to feel welcome to be there. And then it's going to learn more and more that it can be there. Oh, do we have sound on this by any chance? Do we have sound? We might not.
I don't know.
We might not have sound. Long story short, one of my fellow officers works this one. This is supposed to be a yearling. Who was starting to become independent from mom, and the sow taught the cow her behaviors. And the sow was big enough. Can you play that again? There should be a
Let's see here.
cover. If not, that's okay. Perfect. So the sow was big enough to learn to tip over these dumpsters, and she would beat any straps that were on them or any other locking devices on the plastic ones by getting on top of them, and then basically jumping up and down until she smashed them and busted them like a piñata. And then she taught baby to do it. He's not quite big enough yet, but he learned how to do it from the sow. And this guy is just sitting and watching it happen in his truck. Nothing. So it's something to think about because it's learned how to do it. And now it's learned it can do it in human presence and everything's okay. Yes,
Does having a dog discourage bears?
it should. Yes. Yes. If a dog barks at a bear and there's no response from the bear, then that's something to think about. That's a bear I would consider could use some hazing to reinforce that bears should not like dogs or humans. Yeah. Okay, so hazing. It's very nice line spot, I guess. Hazing when it's safe to do so. There are a lot of different things you can do, and it depends on your comfort level and what you have available. But just having a posture and a tone of voice that is not welcoming. That is the starting point that we can use. If that's what we use, great. That is something that is absolutely something that is effective most of the time. But we can also go into these other tools. I always recommend someone have an air horn, especially here. It's surprising how many times like you just open the door, there's bear. or you're walking around on your, walks through your wonderful trail system and there's bear. So just having anything, honestly, when you're out walking in nature is a good thing, and an air horn is easy and effective, and you don't have to be as close as bear spray. I don't love bear spray. I use it in pepper barrels as deterrents, but you have to be pretty close. You have to be very uncomfortably close to a bear to get that into their mucous membranes in order for it to be effective. So try something a little longer range. So anything with noise, unwelcoming body posture and voices. And then projectiles that are safe to use if I'm paid. Depends on the situation and the management need at the moment, but absolutely can use paintballs, as well as 12 gauge less lethal rounds like rubber buckshot or beanbags, stuff like that. Yes.
Would, let's say you carry a round of blanks in a, I don't know, 9mm, would that work?
It would not be my first recommendation. There's not necessarily too loud because I'll use the shotgun with less lethal rounds, which is still almost as loud as normal rounds. If you're carrying it around and you are using a normal firearm with less lethal deterrence, that is a big responsibility. It would not be the first time that I had a landowner come out and try to haze a bear and shoot it by accident, because he forgot he had slugs in his shotgun instead of less lethal rounds. And that's a bad day. And it's not fun for anybody. So would I recommend it? Also, if you're carrying a firearm as daily carry, I don't necessarily think you should put it full of blanks. That is totally my opinion. But if you're going to carry it, I'd rather have it be also useful for growth protection.
But he just does one blank round and then like everything.
And others, which is possible. You just have
We
to
would
know.
accidentally hurt him. So we don't.
Yes, you just have to know exactly what is in your firearm, and that's a big responsibility, but it's a big responsibility to have a firearm in general, so. Having that. Yeah, knowledge of what you are doing and meticulous, being meticulous about what rounds you have. And then deterrence. I know there are apiaries in the neighborhood. I bet there are chicken coops in the neighborhood. Are there any other livestock? Do we have horses in the neighborhood?
You know,
Yes,
only horses,
horses?
yeah.
Okay, so different stuff, that or the main thing that I recommend around anything livestock, or bees is electric fencing. Honestly, if I could have you like electrify your house, I would. It is one of the best deterrents for bears. They do not like electricity at all, and unlike a lot of species, sometimes you'll see they power through it. Bears hate it enough to back out the way they can. So it is a really effective deterrent. Something that we use when we really need to do some intense hazing is our tasers. And that is a similar concept as well. They really don't like it. Hazing and deterrence are definitely a bad day for a bear. But the thing I always try to reinforce is one bad day for a bear or one bad experience could mean a lifetime of saving a bear. So there's a trade-off there. Unwelcome mats, I'd rather have electric mats. There's a lot of things about unwelcome mats. They can be very effective if done right, but essentially it's a piece of wood with nails through it in a specific distance in order to not harm a bear, but be really uncomfortable if they step on it. So they have to be made just right. And we have plans for those and they are effective, but if you have dogs or other, kids running around, you might look at something else, but they do work if you have a place where they could be effective. Ammonia, I put a question mark next to that. There's different schools of thought on this. I don't know how effective it is, and I really would not recommend putting like straight ammonia or even diluted ammonia in a bag and letting the bear fight it. It's bleach, and getting that in their face and their eyes could blind them or have the other harmful consequences. But some people do soak rags in diluted ammonia, put those in coffee can kind of situations, poke holes in that, and then put those in areas where the bear might reach up. I really think it's only effective if you have a spot where the bear is visiting consistently. So for instance, if it's coming and laying on your porch all the time, try it. I don't know. Let me know if it works. Because they're different reports on whether it works or not, but it is something to try. And I would rather say, yes, try it. And we'll see if it helps at all. Anything motion activated is great. I had someone use jump scare Halloween decorations that are motion activated, and it worked really well. Actually, we had like this pop out spider out of a box. So anything along those lines, which is a response that's much more to the bear, like my presence caused this, right? Instead of it being something that is consistently present. Like a radio talk show. I might choose like a rock and roll band or something crazier than that, but that is something that is more consistent that they could get used to. And then reporting, please. There is usually a big misconception on when we get involved, what happens, what is the consequence? And if the first report I get is that a bear is in a shed, a car, or a house, then my response has to be equivalent to the severity of what is happening. And if we don't get reports until then, yeah, it probably doesn't look great when I show up and I have to be the bad guy and have that harsher response to what is happening. But if I know earlier, then we can intervene earlier. I can involve everyone in the community in intervening. And it can be, like we talked about, way more effective. But please report. You don't have to report sightings. I like getting the sightings reports anyways. They all go on the map. It does, if things occur, it really helps with ID. So there are a lot of bears, and knowing what bear is doing what is really important when we're talking about management actions. And so even knowing how long bear has been in the neighborhood or having enough pictures of bear for me to be able to be like, yep, that's the same bear, is great. Plus I love seeing bears. So you can send me all the pictures. So calling our office is the best way during business hours to do bear reports. Or if there is you need a response from the on-call officer, then calling state patrols emergency or non-emergency number, whichever is appropriate, will get to us and we can get someone out after hours. Play? Will you play? Can you play that?
It's shot.
I love videos and pictures. Yes.
Even like the last one, thinking of that.
I'm gonna
Hold on 1 second. Let her try.
If you can, there we go.
Okay.
What are the business hours?
8 to 5, Monday through Friday, minus lunch hour from 1 to 2. Yeah, you can always leave a message though. We'll get back to you.
All right. Let me
Right on there,
No, he wants a picture of the bear.
I got it.
Oh my God. I'd be out of that tent kicking some bear ass right now.
Oh, my Lanta.
It ain't coming over here. Yeah, that's black bear. He's sticking.
Get in there.
Oh, he's peeking at us. He's like, am I getting caught?
Believe this.
Oh, he's getting closer.
Oh, he's in. Look at this guy here. What's he gonna do? Oh, here we go. No, let's just. Oh, yeah.
That's poor guy. Well, that black bear is gonna run when he sees that guy.
You don't think so?
Yeah. 100%. Oh, look at him get at it. He's
He's gonna get it.
getting out of it. There it is. Okay, I'm out.
Boy, he's not scared. Look at him right there.
One of those ones where I'm encouraged to consider what is occurring and what is our response. Breaking back. That's why I should count. It is also legally appropriate to take lethal action against bear that is currently causing damage to a motor vehicle. So just Food for thought. Okay. So we'll talk about what I do. I'm probably going over, I'm so sorry. I could talk about bears for forever. And we'll talk about other stuff, but this is the last one, I promise. What do we do? So this is the first thing I can do. Community outreach, hopefully some education, answering questions and getting buy-in for doing the behaviors or changing the behaviors that can be really helpful as a community, to helping bears and to helping people. As I know some of you know, bear damage is not fun and it can be really expensive. So there's definitely negatives on both sides, to bears and to humans, when we get into these more serious conflict situations. So community outreach, project grants. So we have bear grants through CPW where communities or companies can apply and get awarded grants for bear conflict mitigation. Hazing, we talked about. I have a few more tools in my toolbox. So, like we talked about my taser, I have my shotgun, and I have the label ability and the training to do more serious hazing if the situation calls for it. I also have deterrents that I can help and leave out, and I have some tools that I've had there for way too long that I'm going to pick up today. But I have pepper barrels and I have electric mats that I can load out in order to help with deterrence. Laws and ordinances, they're in effect, they can be really effective. Like half of Boulder has a really cool ordinance for everyone has to have bear resistant trash cans, and then the other half does not. It's very arbitrary, but you can definitely see the difference in bear conflict from one side of the road to the other. There's also the law on not knowingly feeding bears, whether that is intentional or unintentional, whether someone should have reasonably known that a bear could eat the food that is available. That is a law as well. Hard releases are a newer tool. We're kind of leaning into them a lot. Relocation, it sounds nice, but as we kind of talked about, where can I put bears right now? And they also remember where they had the best time and where they got the most food. So if there's no negative reinforcement and I only have so much habitat available, bears will naturally disperse to a density that is comfortable for them, and they will naturally go back to where they got more food. So we've had bears relocated 40 miles away, and in a month they're right back where they started. And then I have a recurring problem that I have to step up my response to. So I would rather lean into other things than that early response. Hard releases are right on the edge of this is serious, but we need to prevent it as best as possible from going 1 or 2 steps further. We have a canine unit now, which is really, really cool. Some of our canine officers actually just got new dogs, and they're incredible. So we're going to all pointy-eared dogs, and they're multi-purpose dogs, but all of them will be able to do bear hazing. So they're never off the lead. Our dogs aren't for bear hazing. There are Brilliant bear dogs, and that's a whole different thing. There's hounds, that's a whole different thing. But our dogs stay in a lead the whole time. And a hard release is essentially I get a bear in a trap. Then I release on site with a lot of negative reinforcement. So it is a really bad day for the bear, but that is like we need to stop behavior now. And we're trying to create as big of a negative reinforcement safely that we can for the bear in one period of time on the location where the behavior occurred. So we're creating that really negative reinforcement on site.
Do you guys ever do like rehab? Like I hear sometimes they do it with a lot of birds of prey.
We have a state-run rehab facility for bears. It is only orphan cubs. So when cubs are orphaned for whatever reason, and we are able to trap them, we can bring them there. It's really nice to have that ability. There is one private rehabber on the west slope, northwest region, who's also able to rehab bears, but those are they are a difficult species to rehab, and it's also difficult to do safely without habituating them further. It's a very difficult balance. So hard release tools, it might be a taser, depending on the circumstances. It might be us having shotguns with less lethal rounds. We might have our sirens on. We're probably yelling and shouting, and it's usually bad bear because we literally don't know what else to say. And then we have the canine barking the whole time the bear is released, and we have the canine and the handler chase the bear. The goal is to make the bear and the canine fully think that there will be contact, but there's no contact. But we have to make them both think that it is real, for the canine's training and reinforcement, as well as to scare the living daylights out of the bear. That is the goal at the end of the day. Yes.
Oh geez. The I keep my forgot.
That's okay. I'll try to get too sooner, so I don't have to forget it. Or make you forget it next time though. So hard releases, what I love about them, I don't have to give a bear strike. I am not putting drugs in its system, so I don't have to ear tag it. Strikes are also misunderstood for bears. I do not show up after a report and put ear tags in a bear. The bear gets so many chances. We are doing all of this work beforehand, and I will work to save my bears. I will absolutely work my butt off. I was up until 5 a.m. yesterday, saving one of my bears, and he's saved for now. Hopefully he doesn't come back. But I will work my butt off. I'll do that.
Did you
having
have a release?
I didn't. I was able to do a relocation that I think will actually be effective for different reasons. But having to put down a bear is like the worst day in my job. It is awful. I hate it, and it is emotionally exhausting, and something I usually don't have control over. Things happen. We get to the point where we have to, it breaks into a house. If it breaks into a house, it's a dangerous bear, and I don't have a choice. So I have to show up and do the dirty work and shoot the bear, and it is very, very sad. And I really don't like doing it. So if we can do anything before then to save the bears, I'm here for it. Then we talked about relocation, and then unfortunately euthanasia. The only times we euthanize a bear are if they are a dangerous bear. So if bark into a house, I don't have a choice. If it got into enough serious nuisance behavior and we're at the point where it's breaking into a ton of vehicles and a ton of sheds, and then we have that high risk of it breaking into a house next. Can't mess with human health and safety. And then the third one is going to be if it has ear tags. So something already happened serious enough where we had to remove the bear and relocate it. And if we have to trap and go hands-on with that bear again, if the repetition of the behavior is serious enough. So lots and lots of chances. I give my bears a lot of rope, especially in a community like this. We're in bear country. So let's try to do a lot of the other stuff. Okay, I think that's it. I'm done. Yes.
So
Okay, watch your eyes. It's gonna get bright.
let's say, you know those little pop-up things that are filled with sparkler powder?
Poppers? Yeah.
If that's fair about.
Are you talking about the ones you throw or the ones that are projectiles?
Throw.
You have to be way too close.
Fourth of July.
For that to be
I don't think
effective.
that would be good, but on our patio, they do that.
Yeah, like firecracker-ish stuff. But they're projectiles that will shoot into the air. The problem right now is that fire danger is really good. So we have to be really careful about where we're using those right now. In order to not create a fire situation, but on a normal year, I would say yes, we absolutely have essentially firecracker links, ones that shoot out of tiny specialized pistols, and then ones that are like 12-gauge shotgun as well.
Yeah, we have wood fawns and a mom that hang out under a porch all the time. I don't know.
Hopefully not downstairs.
I'm starting to wonder if there's bears under there. I'm starting to wonder.
Could be.
They don't keep food up there really.
No. Well, when there is deer, there's more likely to be mountain lions, but
I know.
if you're still alive.
We hear a ton of they chirp all the time.
Yeah,
Around where we live.
mountain lions, local.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Yeah. Okay, any questions on bears or anything else?
What percentage of bear license actually is used?
Fulfilled, like successfully fulfilled. Our bear management strategy right now is kind of strange, and it's different than how we manage other populations because we have a total mortality tolerance, essentially. So all bear mortalities are considered in what is the allowable percentage of mortalities. It's actually not terribly high. I couldn't give you a number, but people usually get bear licenses as an add-on. So it's like we get an elk license, someone buys a bear license, and then if I happen to see a bear while I'm hunting elk. It's more of an opportunistic thing than it is a specific motivator for hunters to get out. But I would say it's lower than our ungulates, but I'd have to check the numbers itself. Yes.
I can attest to that. Having hunted most of my life, I've never seen a bear out in the field.
Not when
Ever.
you want to see one.
And that is the attitude, to tag on in case I see one. Now, watch what happens this year.
You don't buy one and then you see one.
Well, but
Yeah, I've seen bear tracks.
I have seen a few bears, but never out. I also understand, was just up at Long Drop in that area, and the campground host said there's a big bear, it's been hanging around there for about a month. I don't know, that was kind of a question, do you get feedback from campgrounds?
If we have good relationships, so I definitely hear from my arrowhead. Most of my district, like 95% of it is Forest Service land. Which is really cool because I get to collaborate a lot with a lot of different people. So definitely like in the Booter Canyon, my arrowhead volunteers, they're the visitor center for the entire canyon, so I get a lot of information from them when it's reported. Actually, I work with Bel Air Campground. Are there any other major ones? And then the ones up by Chambers, they get a lot of information. Okay.
Okay, are there other substances or scents that a household might have that are deterrents to bears?
It's a hard one. So ammonia is the first one that comes to mind. Pepper spray isn't actually a deterrent unless it's in the mucous membrane. So a lot of people think they can spray pepper spray or really strong spices on things, and it's not. It actually turns into attractant unless it sprays into mouth, nose, eyes. So there are actually very few things I can think of as a scent, especially a strong scent, that deter a bear. We'll want to get into that more, the other senses. The other senses are going to be more effective.
Okay,
I'll look at it.
to scare them or something that might be fumey for
Yeah.
a while that.
A small pain response, or sound. Sometimes even light, but they can get over that pretty quickly. Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking, I used cayenne pepper to keep my puppies from chewing things. So again, they have to get right up into it, but if they sniff that, wouldn't that be? No.
No.
They like it spicy.
My German Shepherd that worked for my Belgian Malinois couldn't have cared less, and it will almost never work for a bear.
Never.
Yes.
Yeah, I met a neighbor,
That's a big thing.
new neighbor to the area. I don't live there, but she lives there now, year round. But she said for the last 3 weeks, she's seen a bear hunt around her house. And is that a typical behavior pattern where they'll kind of stay in a place? I guess that's back on your thing. If they stay there for a month.
Yeah.
I would say no.
Okay.
Yes-ish, but no. If we know it's the same bear and it is there, like right there, for that amount of time, I would say no. That's a bear. I would say please haze it.
So I don't know the validity of her story here, so she gets up to go to work at 3 a.m. She days.
Yeah, I would say that's something that we want to haze.
You ever heard of somebody hazing them here instead of them running away if they get pissed off and attack?
Great question. No, no. So I will tell you when I would say don't do it. If it is a sow with cubs, just stay inside. Yell and scream all you want. Stay inside. If you're going to do any sort of other hazing, do it out of a window. That is pretty non-accessible. Sows There's a reason mama bear is a phrase. So that is something I'd say, don't do it. Have me come out. I'll know how to do it effectively, have the tools how to do that, and keep the cubs safe. It's a whole nother story than dealing with all the variables of cubs are reliant on their mom, and that is a really important thing to consider when we're going through that. The main times that I would say a bear becomes dangerous is simply because they are big and have teeth and claws, and they get into a situation where they feel they need to be defensive. It's not aggression until we get to the point where it is highly habituated and it is not afraid of you, which is pretty rare to get to that point. But if you surprise a bear and all of a sudden we're nose to nose, the options an animal has to get away from you, wildlife wise, it decreases the closer you get, right? So if an animal can choose flight, 99.9% of the time, if they have a fear response, they're going to choose that. But if you're too close, or you're between it and its escape route, or between it and the only viable bear habitat that it sees, that's when we get into these situations where they become defensive because they feel like that is their only or next option.
Could you just briefly talk about or mention or describe the Crystal Lakes Bear Owner Program?
Yes. So we have wonderful volunteers. As we briefly mentioned before, I'm only one person and I have 200,000 acres. And I just can't do everything and be everywhere all the time as much as I would love to be. And so our volunteers are incredibly important. So we have a group, we don't have as many in our area in general. So it'd be something I'd be happy to invest in, but we definitely have groups across the state who volunteer as official volunteers through us and work with us in order to do programs like this when we don't have the availability, in order to organize and gather their data for a community. So Crystal Lakes is doing that. They have a whole map that supplements our maps, where they track all the bear activity in the neighborhood, and they just give it to us in one chunk instead of having multiple people call the office directly. They recently did a bear grant for their community, so they're replacing at least in most of the filings, they're replacing all of their dumpsters with bear resistant dumpsters, and the grant even covers the labor and pouring the concrete slabs for those. So they've done a lot of work for us. So if that's something that the community is interested in, I am happy to help with that. If there's a grant that the community would like to apply for, I am happy to help you with that as well. We'll figure it out together. So a lot of different opportunities for how they can help. They distribute a lot of materials for us, all of those things.
Will they, let's say you're on a hike and if there's a sow with however many kind of food it has, and she's just hiding, and you run into her face nose to nose.
Well, if she's just hiding, then that's a balance. Were you prepared and do you have things with you? Do you have tools? Then first I'd say use your tools, right? And then use your normal hazing tactics. So you're a bigger, better predator. You make the bear believe it. Like mean it and make it believe it. And so that is the thing where you do not act like prey. Do not in any way construe that you could be prey. Don't run. Don't run. Don't climb trees. Do what you can to make yourself look big, scary, and I'm the bigger predator, and then back away.
Like sticks and rocks, if we can do that.
Yeah. If it is in a situation where all of that isn't working, yes, throw stuff at it. Absolutely. Whatever you need to do to keep yourself safe. I don't know that I'd go six rocks. I'd say if the mountain lion is not going anywhere and it's escalated, throw a rock at mountain. Yeah. And if you need to throw the bear, I mean, use your trekking poles. I don't care. Carry something. If you get into that situation, nose to nose, and it's a mama bear, try all your tools and then do what you gotta do. runs faster than everybody else.
So are the cougars and black bears in the same category of where you can just kind of make yourself big and noise and blah blah blah?
Yes, I'd be. We have to recognize the difference in behaviors between the two predators. They're very different species. Mountain lions are big cats, so their behaviors are very different. And so what we interpret as certain behaviors by bears are not indicative of the same behaviors by mountain lions. A lot of people think that they're being stalked by a mountain lion. It is very rarely true. They are a big cat and they're curious and they will stare in your mouth. And so that is there's very big differences there. The biggest thing to note is mountain lions kill bigger prey than bears do. And they're very, very good at it. Bears are their primary food source. Don't look like a deer. Don't bend down, don't reach over, like become big and bad and I'd throw a rock at a mountain lion quicker than I would a bear. So different behaviors.
Let's thank Cait.
Yes.
I'd say we got way more than the bare necessities. Hey.
Bear puns, I love it.
There's banana bread over here, makes, help yourselves. Next, second Tuesday of September, we're having Taylor Archuleta from the Livermore Ranch, come and talk, so every time you've been going on 74E and you got into a cattle drive, come learn more about it. All right, and we're looking for a volunteer to run this lecture series next year. So if you have any interest in participating to help do this, we'll take 1, 2, or 3 people who work as a team. It would help. Terry and Susie have done a great job. Thank Terry. If you have an interest, either see me, sign up on the board, call the office. We'd be happy to help you help us. But thank you very much.